Grab a plate and throw yourself a barbecue because Reacher is back along with his trademark one-liners.
He was stopped by barbecue. He died from trans fats.
He's funny. This guy's funny. He does that sometimes.
But seriously.
In this video, we'll be breaking down the first 3 episodes of Reacher Season 2, which is based off the 11th book in the series, Bad Luck and Trouble. But thankfully, I can't read, so there won't be any book spoilers. We have a whole new case to dig into, but before we do, make sure to like and subscribe because I don't want to go back to my old job.
Don't care if you do. This job is shit.
It's been over 2 years since Reacher left Margrave in the events of Season 1. I am absolutely bummed Willa Fitzgerald's Roscoe isn't in this season, but she did star in The Fall of the House of Usher, which I also did a video on. How's that for some shameless self-promotion? Reacher has gone back to his nomadic lifestyle, one which he enjoys because it gives him a tremendous amount of freedom. But just like Season 1, an event happens which embroils him in a life-or-death adventure, pulling him back into the world of espionage, cover-ups, and peach pie.
I steal pie off windowsills.
This season centers around the 110th Division's Special Investigations Unit, a unit led by Reacher to look into serious matters regarding military personnel. Other than Reacher, the unit is composed of Sanchez, Orozco, Franzi, Neely, Dixon, O'Donnell, Lowry, and Swan. Through flashbacks, we see the day the team first met, bonded over some casual bar fighting, and looked into an investigation regarding missing plane fuel. There's not much we know about this case so far, other than a murdered private named Sims was found to have a kite marking denoting heroin from Afghanistan. Reacher tasks resident hot nerd Dixon with seeing if their victim has any connection to this missing fuel, since the fuel's absence could be explained by an increased load on the plane itself, meaning someone in the military was smuggling heroin out of Afghanistan using military planes. I can't help but think that this case connects with the much bigger case of the season, one which could result in a giant terrorist attack and the death of Reacher himself. The very first episode begins with the body of Calvin Franzi, a former member of Reacher's team, being tossed out of a helicopter. Francis Neely learns of his death and the disappearance of 2 other members, Sanchez and Orozco, which is enough for her to contact Reacher and share her concerns. Now, Reacher doesn't have a phone, so I thought it was pretty cool the way she contacts him is through a special code using an ATM bank statement. I also like how Reacher puts on this I don't like to get involved attitude, but his morals often push him to break this rule.
Wait! Who are you?
Someone who prefers not getting involved.
Flashback. End of flashback.
Pretty soon, Reacher finds himself in New York and knee-deep in finding out who tortured and killed his friend. But it's also a bit sad that Reacher's nomadic lifestyle has caused life to go by without him noticing.
Guess life ends when you're away too.
He finds out things like former member Lowry died in a car crash several years ago, Calvin got married and had a child. He's missing out on these big events of his friend's life. As Neely and Reacher look into their friend's death, we see they're followed by a hitman named Seropian. He's being paid by someone high up at New Age Technology, some sort of aerospace company. This is Shane Langston, and I thought it was hilarious when he asked why Neely was using Sarah Connor as a codename, considering he played T-1000 in Terminator 2, who was programmed to hunt her down.
And who's Sarah Connor?
I don't give a shit.
While investigating Calvin's trashed office, they deduce that what his killers were looking for must have been small, since they even broke the chair legs off to see if there were any hollow hiding places. We'll learn that this item is a USB drive, one which they find in Calvin's mailbox.
What are you, the mail police?
This USB has 2 strange pieces of information on it, a list of aliases whose first name all start with the letter A and whose last names start with the letter M. We're then introduced to the owner of these aliases, a mysterious arms dealer who travels across the country using these fake identities. I'll call him AM for now. You know he can't be up to any good when he's burning passports in an airport washroom. Throughout the first 3 episodes, we'll see him travel to 3 locations: Los Angeles, Colorado, and Washington. And this dude ain't afraid to cover his tracks using the smallest knife I've ever seen. I mean, that size is perfectly average, right? Right? I also think it's interesting that we'll see him carry a comic book in many of his scenes, even telling a kid,
Do you know why I love comic books so much?
Because the good guys always win.
This guy probably has a superhero complex, believing himself to be doing good. As the saying goes, most villains don't see themselves as villains, rather the good guy, and this is probably what we're dealing with here. The second bit of information found on the USB is a list of numbers, and it won't be until episode 3 that we discover they are specific dates, but more on that in a bit. Now Reacher and Neely come back to their hotel room to find it trashed, but even more surprising is the presence of O'Donnell, another former member of the Special Investigations Unit. According to him, the place was trashed like this when he got there, but I'm keeping my eye on him because that's quite the coincidence. I have a sneaking suspicion someone in the team will double-cross them, and from the first 3 episodes, my guess is either O'Donnell or Dixon. In episode 2, Reacher and the others will team up with Dixon as they believe someone is targeting members of their team, killing them one by one. But who would want to do this? Is it someone their team put away and holds a grudge, or is something more nefarious at play? Following them is NYPD detective Gaetano Russo. His investigation into the death of Calvin Franzi has put Reacher and his team as prime suspects. And it totally doesn't help that Reacher beats the crap out of him. In his defense, he didn't know Russo was a cop until after. This will come back to haunt him later when he's arrested, which actually works in his favor as Russo and Reacher will end up working together to uncover this plot. The next stop in their investigation leads them to Atlantic City. Turns out Calvin was working with 2 other former members, Orozco and Sanchez, and they were working on something that could have gotten them killed. We hear from this woman that Orozco kept repeating the numbers 650 at 100k each, leading Reacher and the team to believe he was investigating something involving nearby casinos, since both Orozco and Sanchez now worked in security for them. But later in episode 2, we'll find this isn't the case. Chief Security Officer Wright confirms they weren't working on any special case for the casinos, but more concerning is our pal AM, who's tipped off about a shipment of 650 weapons he promises won't be used on US soil. So it looks like Franzi, Orozco, and Sanchez were looking into a weapons deal between AM and Langston. At the beginning of episode 3, we'll see Langston torture Franzi, wanting to know how much he figured out and who else knows about it. But the question remains, what does a guy working for an aerospace company want with weapons, and what exactly are these weapons, especially ones that come at 100k a pop? To make matters worse, the team learns that the bodies of Orozco and Sanchez have been found, each with similar torture markings and dropped in the same wooded area as Franzi. After taking out Seropian, the hitman in charge of taking out Reacher, they find a parking pass in his car for New Age technology. This is their first clue linking whoever is after them to New Age. Dixon and Neely will investigate meeting New Age Director of Operations, Marlo Burns. She claims that this man was here for a job interview and passes on to them his address, but as we'll see later on, this is all an ambush. Meanwhile, Reacher is interrogated by Russo. I thought it was interesting how pissed Russo gets when Reacher insinuates he's a dirty cop, so there might be more of a backstory there. We do, however, get some more information regarding AM. Russo was able to find an unfinished job on the memory card in Franzi's printer, one which shows AM is wanted by Homeland Security for conspiracy to commit a terrorist act. This guy is an international arms broker who claims he can get any tech to the highest bidder. This is likely why Langston wants whatever AM is selling. Perhaps there's some technology here that could be beneficial to New Age. Maybe it belongs to a rival company, or it might help him acquire a defense contract. There's just not enough information to go off just yet. Meanwhile, Dixon cracks the code on those mysterious numbers found on Franzi's USB, and I gotta admit, this was really confusing the first time I heard it.
I've understood nothing since you said, "Oh my God."
First, there are 7 of these pages, and each page designates a specific month of the year. Dixon will theorize that these are the final 7 months of the year, so from June to December. On each page, there are a series of either 26 or 27 numbers. These numbers are workdays if you follow a 6-day work week. So depending on when your month starts, you either have 26 or 27 workdays in it, with anywhere from 3 to 5 days off.
I've understood nothing since you said, "Oh my God."
Why is this important? Well, these numbers correlate to some sort of shipment. with Dixon stating that there are a huge number in the early months, i.e. June and July, with it dwindling in the latter. My mind immediately went into drug shipments, especially since we have this secondary case told through flashbacks, which seems to involve opium in Afghanistan.
Saw these all the time in Afghanistan.
Now, this could just be a coincidence, but I researched when the opium harvest starts in Afghanistan, and it lines up with June, the same month these pages start, which could explain why the beginning months have lots of shipments and they slowly dwindle as the harvest ends. But the episode winds down with the ambush at Seropian's house. Someone wanted them to show up at this address, but Reacher and the team make quick work of these men while Reacher chases after this guy who was sent to make sure the job was done. This dude looks like an office job type of guy, leading me to believe he was sent by Langston. But things get extra weird when Reacher and the gang break into New Age, stealing hard drives, files, and all sorts of information. The biggest revelation is that former SIU member Tony Swan worked there too, and he seems to be pretty high up, right next to the head of operations and Langston himself. In episode 1, Reacher believed Tony to be dead,
Swan's dead.
as he would never have left his dog to die locked in his home. We can't rule anything out when it comes to Swan. He could have worked with Langston, or it's possible he was undercover and working with Franzi. That still leaves us with the question of whether or not he's alive. Could he be on the run, and what exactly was his involvement with New Age? These are questions for next episode, but now I turn it over to you. What are your thoughts and theories on what's to come? I'd love it if you liked and shared this video. I hope to do more if it does well. Thanks for watching. For more bad takes, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember,
He was stopped by barbecue. He died from trans fats.